Welcome to Why Invest Wednesday. Hope you guys are all doing well. Get here. All right. Why Invest Wednesday. Hope you guys are having a good week so far. Today, we're going to dive into a little bit of supply and demand. So, as we talk about our economy and inventory and everything that's going on in the world as far as real estate goes, we hear a lot of people talking about, a bubble crash. We're in a bubble. We're going to wait for prices to come down. We're going to wait for foreclosures. We're going to wait. We're going to wait. We're going to wait. Everyone says that we should wait. Well, I'm here to tell you today that that is not the case. If you take a look and go back to, middle school economics or maybe high school economics, the number one thing they teach you is supply and demand. And I feel like some of the real estate naysayers are ignoring that simple economic basic of supply and demand. And I'll tell you a little bit about why here. So let's start with the supply. Everyone has heard us talk about low inventory, record this, record that. There's no homes for sale. And my question is, why aren't homes for sale? And where is inventory going? Right now, we stand about 41% lower inventory than we did a year ago today. So last I checked, we're hovering right around 2,000 homes on the market in the major county Denver area, which is, a 10-county area, huge area, 2,000 homes for sale actively right now, give or take, as the week progresses. For year to date, we are up 15% as far as closings. So people are still buying houses. The demand is obviously there. So that's where our inventory sits right now. And that's clearly a problem as we move, into 2021. And what's driving the problem? There's a lot of reasons. Obviously, with the pandemic, we have a little bit of job uncertainty. We have a lot of people that are stepping back and maybe don't want a bunch of people touring their homes. So that's a driving force. We have the fear of not finding a replacement home, which there are some programs coming up that I'm going to get into at a later date about how we can maybe eliminate that piece. So I'm doing my part there to find ways to relinquish the fear of not being able to find a replacement home. I've never not been able to. I've gotten close a couple of times within a couple of days where we might have a homeless layover, but I've never had a homeless client, so that's good. So that piece may be able to decrease a little bit. And then the next phenomenon that we're going to be looking at is this thing called rate lock. People are going to be in interest rates that are so good, their home is so affordable that it makes it less desirable to move. Maybe we're going to build onto our house, take a little HELOC out, or stay where we're at and just make it work. There's something to be said for staying where you're at and making it work. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to affordable housing in a minute. So the fear is that as we move forward, all of these people that have purchased homes in the last year with these record low interest rates are going to want to stay in that home and not put it on the market, and further inhibiting our inventory issues. So that's going to be a main problem. Say you were forced to move. Maybe it's time to downsize, or maybe you have to upsize because you had another kid, or something's changed in your family dynamic. And so those people are going to take a look at that property and say, okay, well, we have such a great deal on interest rates, our payments so affordable, let's rent that out. Furthermore, actually taking away inventory, because we're going to move from this house with our capital and we're going to go and buy another house. So when we move homes to rental properties, it obviously takes one house out of the basket in the grand scheme of things. So those are all things, and they're going to call that rate lock. And that's going to be a phenomenon moving forward. I would say we'll probably hear a lot about it for the next year or two. I don't believe we'll see a lot of it actually playing out until, 3 to 5 years down the road, when people are, it's time to move, it's time to sell. But we're going to see what we can do, what's best for our economic strategy. Is it best to just keep that super low interest rate, super low payment, and get a little cash flow and allow someone else to pay down that mortgage for us? Or should we sell or should we just stay here and make it work? All of those things will come into play, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, for many, many Why Invest Wednesdays to come. The real story and the real driving factor is the demand. All of this inventory stuff we could maybe solve, build more houses, things like that, but the demand is not going away as we continue to see the main driving factors, the demographics alone. We can't change what we have. 25 to 29, prime home buying, first-time home buyer years. There's 23.5 million people in that age bracket right now that are just ready to buy homes, ready to compete, and continue to push prices up. And at some point, if you're ready to buy your first home and you're ready, you're going to maybe stretch a little bit outside of your means or outside of your comfort zone to get that. So the next age bracket, the second biggest, is the 30 to 34-year-old group, and that's like the prime investor years. People are really deciding, okay, we have a secure job, we're going to start investing here or there. Maybe they decide on real estate and they start gobbling up rental properties. That's what I did when I was in that age bracket. So that's 22.5 million people that are also taking inventory, plucking inventory as we go. And then you have the 50 to 55 range, which is your prime money-making years, which is obviously when you make more money, you're like, okay, I get a bigger house. If that's the case, that's 22 million people. So those three groups, 15 years age bracket total, are huge, and they're scooping up inventory, they're making moves, and that's a big deal there. So the demographics, we can't do much about that. Okay. The next thing is we have record low interest rates. We've hit a record low interest rate 13 times. That's not going to change for the foreseeable future. The the Feds continue to buy mortgage-backed securities just like they did when the pandemic first started, and they're continuing to hold those down. With some of the incoming economic figures, it's foreseen that the Fed's going to continue to work to hold those interest rates low, which will continue to make affordability possible even with these appreciating values. So that's the next thing. And then the economic plan, and we're not going to get too political here, but a lot of the things that are in the economic plan of the president-elect happen to affect this demand. So nothing's in stone yet, but we have a $15,000 home buyer credit at the closing table that could take effect. Well, that's going to make demand increase. Absolutely. My thoughts on that, I would imagine that sellers will gobble that $15,000 up. The very lowest people that are earning that credit may have a little bit of a fighting chance, which is great, but I think it might just end up going straight in the seller's pocket, whether that's appraisal gaps or using that money, since it's credited at the closing table. They're going to use that money to win, not to stabilize their investment. So that's part of that. We'll move past that. We'll go to the affordable housing. Affordable housing is absolutely needed. However, affordable housing in its current state is very inhibiting to the person that purchases a house. One thing about it is it's usually newer construction, pretty nice places compared to what you would see on the active market. So that's one thing. There's very tight restrictions on it right now. I've had very few people that have asked me about it, but when they do, they usually don't qualify because you have to make such little amount of money. And if you have two incomes in a household, it's like $48,000 as the cap. So that has to change a little bit if it's going to work. But regardless, say we did have a buyer that got into that, absolutely, that's going to be great. But when we get to there, once you own a home like that, you are basically, the only thing that you're gaining is your principal pay down, which you're paying for out of your own pocket. The restrictions on appreciation inhibit you from stepping up as you go. So that's one thing about affordable housing that has to change. But regardless, if we expand that program or we change everything, that's going to increase demand because it's going to make it more possible for some people to own homes. My thought is, why don't we counsel people to maybe live a little bit uncomfortably for another year or two and work on getting yourself prepared so you can buy a home that's going to appreciate at the national average and not at a government subsidized average, because that essentially takes away your ability to step up. And my point is, it increases the difference between the have and have nots. You're in affordable housing, you're gonna have to be there forever. Doesn't allow you to build economic wealth because of all the restrictions on it. So in my mind, it's just a glorified savings account that you only get 2/3 of the money back from if you're lucky, if you stay there for 30 years. So that's affordable housing. And then we talk about the next thing, which would be student loan forgiveness. Well, if you take away student loans, you forgive those debts, you're going to have a higher ability in your debt to income ratio, more room to qualify. So all that aside, all that sounds great for the real estate market, but in the end, it's just further increasing our demand. We're not doing a lot to help the supply, which is where we probably should be focusing our efforts, whether that's building, helping the builders out, I don't know, maybe having people train for those trades and encouraging those people who are going to college. Maybe a trade is what they want to do, but they don't think they can make enough money or whatever. Maybe we encourage that and put a little money towards those schools and increase the trade so that we can build more homes. Granted, we will run out of land eventually, but we still have plenty of that. So that's one thing that is interesting to me, is we all focus on the demand and home buyer credits and first-time home buyer programs and all of this stuff, which I agree that the dream of home ownership should be obtained by many people all the time. That's my job, is to make people homeowners. I do not agree that we need to further increase the demand without maybe the counsel of those people to make better choices. And maybe, just maybe we need to, live in a roommate situation for a little bit longer, or make those sacrifices now, because instead of just coming up with a quick fix, a quick Band-Aid, affordable housing, and further inhibiting our ability to gain wealth, maybe we take that on the chin, maybe live in a home with another couple or something like that, so that you can save on rent, so that you can save money, so that you can put yourself in a position to buy as soon as possible at a normal rate, in a normal home that's on the market, so that you control, or the economy controls your appreciation, because appreciation has changed millions of lives, of people I know, people around me, people I've helped, because while we're paying down our principal, we're also appreciating higher. And then at the end of the day, we have the ability to take that appreciation and our principal payoff and move up in a house, and then move up again. And eventually we're in our dream home, and we're actually living the American dream, just not a fragment of it. So that's a lot there, but supply and demand, I feel like when people talk about this bubble, when people talk about foreclosure, they aren't considering the number one factor that drives any business, any economy, which is supply and demand. So with the housing market, it's the same way. Yeah, I hope you guys are all doing well. A little bit of sports for you. The Big Ten decided today that the Buckeyes could play in their Big Ten playoff game, so that's good. They're pretty much the only team in the Big Ten that could make noise at a national level, so that's positive. So good for them. We made a change. We looked at what was going on and made a change. So I'll let my Michigan buddies off the hook for that one. But I hope you guys all have a good day. If you want to talk supply and demand, have any questions, we'd love to chat with you anytime. Talk to you later. See you next week. Bye-bye.